going on, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome, and as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. And today, we're in the Hall of Spoilers to talk a little bit about DC Comics, in particular, the top 5 DC Comics to read right now. DeepBoyce Rebirth, DC Rebirth is fire right now, man.
Hitting on all cylinders, man. Making it happen. And just one of the few things DC is beating out Marvel on. But let me not start the war. We're focusing on DC.
What Comics. War? I don't know what war you're talking about.
Fanboys war here, you know, talking about DC versus Marvel. So we're just gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it civil.
We're not trying to rip the fandom apart here. We're just talking about top 5 DC comics to read right now in case you're looking to get into some comics, and we recommend it, man. Like, and just to just put it out there, man, we're some dudes that we weren't into comics, or at least we weren't reading comics a lot until, you know, recent years. I would say like the last maybe like what, 2 or 3 years. And you know, we're both in our mid to late 20s, so anybody could jump in. And with these shows, you know, with all the shows you guys love, especially DC shows right now, the Arrowverse shows, Gotham, you know, a little bit of comics not gonna hurt, especially with these comics we're about to name. So let's start off with the honorable mentions, man. DeepBoyce, what do we got first?
Our first honorable mention is Wonder Woman. I was gonna say Gal Gadot.
I mean, to fans nowadays, that's synonymous
at this point. Yeah, well, you know, we can't forget about Linda Carter, but you know, honorable mention Wonder Woman, and you know, at some point we're gonna delve deep into the Wonder Woman comics as well as a couple other comics in terms of how to catch up on them and what to read, what not to read, so you won't get confused. Because Wonder Woman is a good example of comic books getting a little too comic booky. Just real quick, it's like comes out twice a month, and it's basically two different stories. One that's an origin story, one that's more of a present day story. So as someone that's trying to read them week to week, especially if you're new to this, it'll be a little confusing, really, because the stories don't always connect. But, you know, and also it didn't start off as strong, but over time it got pretty good. So we definitely wanted to, you know, give a shout out to Wonder Woman because she's winning right now. She's winning right now.
No, I agree. It took a while for the stories to kind of make sense because one takes place in the past. One issue during the month will take place in the past, and one issue will take place during the present. But it does converge nicely as you proceed through the comics. And you know, we're like Boy said, we're gonna do a guide on how to get into Wonder Woman in the future, and it'll break it down for you. So stay tuned for that. Come back here, hit the subscribe button right now. You can catch up with that. Yeah. But anyway, our next honorable mention is Teen Titans, baby.
Nice.
Starring the son of Batman, aka the heir to the cow, as he'd like to be called.
Oh, yeah.
Damian Wayne. So this is kind of like a new age Teen Titans comic where you know the team is a lot of the role, like the mantles are similar because you got Robin, Damian Wayne, you got Kid Flash, Wally West, not redhead Wally West, the other Wally West that some people don't like, but he's a pretty cool character. You've got Beast Boy, you've got Raven, and you've got Star Sapphire. So that's Star Sapphire.
Starfire.
You got Starfire. I'm mixing up my DC characters here. You got Starfire. I'm not sure why she's on the Teen Titans. I guess maybe she's more of a mentor.
She's mentally a 12-year-old kid.
Oh, damn. Why you hating on her, man? That's
Come on.
Messed
you
up,
tell me
man.
You didn't think that when you watched Teen Titans Go? I'm like, damn, this girl needs to grow up.
First of all, I don't watch Teen Titans Go. I watch regular Teen Titans.
Yes.
I don't watch that trash.
I apologize. I mean,
demonry.
The original Teen Titans show, not Teen Titans ZZZZZ, because that thing puts me to sleep.
Teen Titans Go to the trash.
Teen
Titans Go away.
Go on, get your ass on out of here.
But Teen Titans has been pretty dope. Starting off with Damian Wayne bringing the team together. And you know, Damian Wayne, he's an idiot, man. He's such an ass, man. He's a little ass. Yeah. And the way he brings the team together is pretty funny because essentially he's like, yo, we need to work together because we need to do this. And I need friends. But I'm not saying that because that would be too difficult for me to say. So, you know, it starts off actually with him like battling Ra's al Ghul, his grandfather. And I mean, it was really good. It was really well done. And there's not that many issues right now, at least.
About 8.
And it comes out Say it again?
About 8.
Yeah, because it's kind of started a little bit late into the Rebirth run, so good one to get into if you're trying to jump into the comics right now.
Yes, totally agree.
Definitely, man. What do we got next for honorable mention? Our final honorable mention. This was kind of like 2 put together.
It is Batman / The Flash. I mean, if you read comics and you haven't heard about the Button, then I don't know what you're doing. You're probably not reading comics, or you're a time traveler or something. You ought to just displace out of time, because when it comes to comics, the Button, which is the DC storyline, is really where it's at. It was a dope storyline, which was a kind of a crossover between Tom King's Batman and the Flash comic book. So we just felt that, we were juggling what to put on this list, and we omitted Batman and the Flash, but that storyline was one of the best storylines that we've read this year thus far. So we wanted to add them as an honorable mention. But Batman on its own also has a few good story arcs on there that are worth reading, and they're doing one called The War of Jokes and Riddles, which might be kind of cool. And then the Flash, obviously, it introduced a new character named Godspeed early on in its run, and that was that was fire. That was a lot of fun to read.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But again, both of these we kind of did not include in our top 5 list because they've been kind of inconsistent with the story arcs.
Agreed, man. Well said. I mean, one thing to note about the Button, guys, the Button is part of the main story for what DC Rebirth is all about. So if you heard about this, essentially Dr. Manhattan has been alluded to being a manipulator in the DC universe, and they've been kind of teasing him as an overarching villain. And the Button is pretty much, I would say it's the first big arc, that multi-part arc that kind of goes into this mystery about who's been meddling in the timeline of the DC universe. So it's your first like real look at whether or not or who's involved in this whole thing. And Dr. Manhattan is teased once again in this part, so you guys should definitely check that out. But anyway, let's get into the top 5. DeepBoyce. With number 5, man. We got one I think a lot of people will love, man.
Yes.
What we got?
It is one of the members of the Bat family, Jason Todd the Red Hood, in Red Hood and the Outlaws. So that's a comic book starring Jason Todd the Red Hood alongside Artemis, who is a Wonder Woman character, and Hazy's favorite, Bizarro Superman.
Oh, my God. Me no like Bizarro. Me no like Bizarro, but I like that comic. Comic is good, man. I'm not a fan. Listen, Bizarro's an idiot, bro. He's a moron. I'm sorry. He's not great. He's not a great character. He's like one of those like really bad doppelganger characters, okay? They're like, how could we make a worthy adversary for Superman? Like, it's opposite day, everybody. Guy's got a backward S and he's an idiot. It's not great. It's not great. But Red Hood and the Outlaws is really good. It's actually really, really good. Like, actually makes me care about the character of Bizarro for sure.
It does, because they use him in a great way where he's just like, I mean, I'll be honest, he's a lot like the Hulk. Just kind of, he's dumb, but he is more kind than the Hulk. But he's I guess like a 3-year-old that's basically has all the powers of Superman. He's like just super strong, super capable.
For sure. I mean, Red Hood, I mean, I would say if I had to compare him in terms of like, his dialogue, I would say he kind of reminds me of Deadpool, just a lot less crazy. But he's so snarky, so funny. He's got a swagger to him. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and with the Robins, that be Nightwing, Tim Drake, Damian Wayne, and Jason Todd, who is Red Hood. I feel like he's the one who kind of has like the most edge to him, and they really show that because this is kind of his attempt at kind of getting back in Batman's good graces, and he's rolling with his own team. He's got Artemis, not arrow shooting Artemis, but a Amazonian Artemis, who she brings the power, and Bizarro also brings the muscle, but he's an idiot, so he's also a liability as well. But I mean, just the first arc they did with Black Mask, fantastic character, truly menacing. I love the way they brought the team together. Highly recommend this comic. You guys should check it out. Also, it doesn't come out that frequently too. Yeah. So it's not like you gotta feel like you're overwhelmed with issues, coming out of the woodworks.
Indeed.
But the next one, number 4. This is my pick, people. I love this comic because I love this character. Okay, Number 4 is Nightwing, man. Nightwing has been pretty much fantastic from the jump. Okay, and the great thing about Nightwing is that I feel like the stories and the arcs are written really well without there necessarily being any like big villains. Like, let's be honest, you know, Nightwing is a Bat Family character. He doesn't necessarily have his own rogues gallery, but all the villains they've used really well. They also created, you know, a character. I won't spoil it for you, but they've created a character by the name of Raptor who plays a really big role in the beginning as Nightwing kind of tries to take down the remnants of the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
And Raptor is critical in that role, and Raptor is a really good character.
Yeah, no,
really cool character.
Absolutely, it's been. I mean, this is Dick Grayson written at his best.
Sure.
Just kind of, you know, a character that I think is great for, you know, both men and women, or young girls and even adults, or young guys, or any sort of demographic. He's a very likable character who is, you know, very interesting and has a pretty interesting background, coming off of being a secret agent at one point, and obviously being the first Robin and being the first leader of the Teen Titans. And, you know, with this character Raptor, they definitely introduce, I mean, he's not just your quintessential villain. He's pretty interesting in the way that he kind of interacts with Nightwing in that first story arc without revealing too much. And then after that, you know, they continue to throw out interesting threats and interesting dilemmas without going through, you know, the regular superhero fare, you know, kind of keeping it personable and likable, you know, as Dick Grayson usually is. And you know, you explore his, like, you basically get aspects of him being an older brother, being a, you know, a young adult boyfriend that's, you know, thinking about the future. And they've definitely, and it's great that they bring him, you know, eventually to his old stomping grounds, not to reveal too much, but they make they make the most of what they put into this comic in terms of some of the villains and some of the characters that they kind of just sprinkle on in there. And that's always, to me, that's always a huge plus in any comic book, when you can kind of dig deep into the well and really make use of you know, the grits, I guess.
Well said, well said. Now let me just say, issue 15 of Nightwing, like, I'm not usually big on romance in comics. One of the most well done romance issues I've ever like read. Like, it gave weight to a relationship that he has, and it did so without spending issues and issues and issues of these characters like slowly falling, you know, in love. Yeah. And they just kind of just, they did it because it spanned multiple months, and it just made you believe in the relationship, and that was that.
The key thing is that they acted like normal people.
Yes.
They
didn't make no rash decisions like, oh, you're a superhero, I can't do this anymore. It's just is what it is.
Everything was extremely reasonable. Nothing was just drama just for the sake of drama. It was, I agree, totally great.
Definitely. Next up, number 3. This is a personal favorite of DeepBoyce, so I'm gonna pass the buck over to him.
Oh yeah. We're talking about Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. I mean, you know, in DC Comics, they gave us 2 Green Lantern comics. There's the Green Lanterns with Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. But obviously, the Green Lanterns have an enormous history and backstory and many other characters. So they did a pretty smart thing where they had the 2 new Green Lanterns here on Earth. That's in the Green Lanterns comic book. But there's a lot of stuff going on way out in space with the Green Lantern Corps, and that is where they put in Hal Jordan and John Stewart and Guy Gardner and Kyle Rayner and Sinestro, and basically kind of continuing the amazing run that Jeff Johns had with the Green Lanterns not too long ago, which involved, you know, the Sinestro War and Blackest Night and Brightest Day and all that kind of stuff. So this one, to me, has been extremely interesting from the beginning. I mean, I'm a huge Green Lanterns fan, and I think that's a character that doesn't get as much love. I mean, it's getting a lot of love in the comics. I think they're doing them right. That's why this one is an entry in our list. But it's not only building upon the Green Lantern mythos while also kind of harkening back and paying homage to what we've got in recent history, again by Jeff Johns, who I can't say enough how fantastic of a job he did in really revamping the Green Lantern Corps.
I mean, Jeff Johns is basically running the DC cinematic universe right now, and he's one of the most like highest ranking members of the DC Corporation at large now, because he was such a fantastic writer on things like Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, he's the man. So, I mean, he's been on board with a lot of other comics to revamp them as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Jeff Johns. Yeah. I mean, he's even, if you're fans of the Arrowverse, he's even written some episodes of The Flash.
Yeah, and
Jeff Johns is pretty omnipresent in the comic world, particularly on the DC side of things.
And he's also going to be in charge of the Titans TV show, so that might be very, very good, because he did Teen Titans, back in the day.
Yes,
so that should be good.
And every episode he's written for Arrow and the Flash have been good, have been great. Like every single, I'm not kidding, every episode he's done for those shows has been good.
Absolutely,
so
totally agree.
Highly recommended. Definitely. But, Hal Jordan and Green Lantern continues that legacy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's, again, you have to read it for yourself, but they get right into it from the beginning with Sinestro, Green Lantern Corps versus the Yellow Lantern Corps, and then from there, not to spoil too much, but things get very interesting in the next steps that they take for that group of characters, and you see everyone gets their due. It's awesome, and even now they take the two new ones, not to spoil too much, but they throw them in there as well, and again, everyone gets their due. Everyone looks awesome. I mean, it's plus, if you're a fan of, I guess, sci-fi and comics, this is a great sci-fi comic. I mean, just way out in space, and just how creative it is, and how awesome the art looks, and they haven't really, and while they do pay homage to some of the older stuff in Green Lantern, in the Green Lantern mythos, they are really creating a lot of new stuff, which I think is also really cool. They're not really they're not really kind of rehashing any old storylines or bringing in too many older villains yet. So that kind of excites me for the future of this comic, where maybe they'll, at a certain point, they'll bring in some heavy hitters. Maybe they'll bring in the Green Lanterns out of nowhere to have like a huge crossover, a huge event. I mean, it's on the up and up still. So, like Hazy said, one of my favorites. Hazy also enjoys it a lot. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. I agree with all of that, man. Number 2, guys. Number 2, this comic, both me and Boyce are huge fans of, and if you're a fan of the Arrowverse and you love Arrow, you need to jump into Green Arrow right now. Start at the beginning and jump into it. It is a great comic.
This is a fantastic, and it's so well written, and the plots are they're just so interesting to me. Like it's just been consistently well done, and I think what I like about this comic is, Oliver Queen is still Oliver Queen. From the cartoons and in the comics, obviously. It's not so much the CW Oliver Queen. That's a little bit more like Batman.
Yeah.
But they take that character and they surround him in a much more darker universe. Much more
For
darker
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that kind of intrigues me the most about Green Arrow is that, like, he's in a terrible situation. And I'll put it up right out there, right off the bat, like, he basically loses his fortune, and he's no longer the rich, billionaire who, has a ridiculous amount of funds to go and do everything he wants. And he's essentially trying to be Green Arrow and kind of redefine who Oliver Queen is at the same time. It's got awesome side characters like Black Canary,
who, she's fantastic.
She's a great addition to that comic. And even characters like Diggle from the Arrowverse make an appearance in there. But ultimately, the great thing about it is there's something going on in Star City, and Oliver Queen's got to get to the bottom of it, and just the machinations and the dastardly stuff that's going on in the comic. It's really dark, but it's so well done. He, is Oliver Queen at his best in terms of his personality, and at the same time acknowledging the fact that he's made mistakes. Like, Oliver Queen is similar to Tony Stark in many ways, and that he's kind of been a dick for a good part of his life, and he has to atone for that. And there's also some revelations about his past, some of his closest allies, his parents, and it's just really well done. It takes place in Seattle also, but if you're a fan of Star City, you get your due.
Yeah, and
you will get your due.
And it's great you mentioned the city itself, which I think is something that I think this comic also does well. That I guess, you know, Batman, for example, just to juxtapose, usually does well. Gotham itself is a character in a lot of Batman movies and comics. And I think that they're really giving, like, I really like the vibe that they give you for this version of Seattle. I mean, Seattle obviously is a great place. It's not this crime-ridden and dark.
No.
But you really get a sense of how this city is unique in the comics. And, you know, Hazy mentioned earlier that they, you know, there's some nefarious stuff going on behind the scenes. There's particularly this new group of villains that I think are extremely awesome, and I would like them to expand them throughout DC Comics. I haven't really seen, not to say too much, but they're basically bankers for villains, and they're very well done, and I think they're really kind of creepy and cool in their own way. Very Court of Owl-ish.
I was about to say that it harkens to the harkens back to the Court of Owls, definitely. Definitely,
and they're just kind of ever present. You know, sometimes they're at the heart of the problem, and sometimes they're kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. And you know, they really engage Oliver Queen in a number of adventures in a way where, again, you know, despite how the CW characterizes him, he's not Batman. He does fail often, and he
does brood.
Yeah,
he does brood.
He does,
but he covers it up with humor and charm. Yeah. And that's one thing I love about Green Arrow in the comics. He's mad charming, and he's making quips, and he's the type of guy where, you know, he thinks he's funny, and everyone else doesn't think he is funny, which then makes it funny to the reader. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I love about him, man. But DeepBoyce, on to numero uno, number one, the top comic you should be reading right now. DeepBoyce, tell the leaguers what it is.
It is without question Detective Comics. Now, before you guys say anything, yes, we love Batman here, and there's another Batman-centered comic, but there's no denying that Detective Comics has been phenomenal, just
phenomenal,
amazing. Again, and you know, Detective Comics is not just about Batman, and I think that's part of what's fantastic about it, given that it's an ensemble cast. I mean, just to throw some names out there, you have Batman. You have Tim Drake, you have Batwoman, you have Orphan, you have Clayface, you have Spoiler. I think Stephanie Brown's her name, right?
Yes.
And they just throw a lot of...
You got Lucas Fox, too.
Lucas Fox as
A.K.A.
well. Nightwing.
A.K.A. Batwing.
And Azrael makes an appearance as well. Again, not...
Yes, Azrael, too. Too.
Not to spoil too much, but it's Batman yet again making another team, because... Yeah. He's starting to realize, hey, I can't do it all by myself, despite how stubborn I may or may not be. And this may sound like Batman by himself is a heavy hitter, but with him with some backup, with some of these guys and gals, it may seem almost unstoppable. But man, they throw some obstacles in their way during this Detective Comics run. And to be exact, we're talking about starting off with Detective Comics 934. That's the first Detective Comics in DC Rebirth. I know that sounds kind of a little crazy, but just trust me. Just start at 934 and you'll be good. Just keep reading up until now.
That's where we started. So don't feel like you got to start before that. It is more than sufficient for you to start. I mean, one of the best things about Detective Comics, as Boy said, is the ensemble cast. So Batman starts his team, and let me tell you, like, no lie, Barbara Gordon is probably the most famous female or woman in the Bat family, but Batwoman, to me, she's the best. She's the best. She's one of the best characters in the Bat family, and she's actually a better overall character than Batgirl in terms of how she's been written thus far in the comics. That's no offense to Batgirl. Batgirl's also been written really well, but the role that they give Kate Kane of being, I mean, essentially Batman makes her the leader of the team.
Batman's sort of like the head coach, and she's the quarterback.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it.
Right. And with her, her storylines are awesome because she has this ongoing issue with her father. And the dynamics of the team, everyone has a storyline that matters to them. Batwoman, she's got this issue with her father that I won't go into, but it plays into the larger scheme and what Batman is planning for, assembling this team because he knows a war is coming. You got Tim Drake, who has, you know, a storyline where Batman has charged him. He's acknowledged that Tim Drake is like one of the smartest dudes he knows, and he's entrusted him with, you know, helping this team stay together and, you know, doing the tech and security for the team. You've got Spoiler, aka Stephanie Brown. She has a conflict in that something really crazy happens to her in the comic, and emotionally changes how she feels, and maybe even changes her role as a hero. And then you've got Orphan, who's Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain. She's got ties to the League of Assassins. That's all I'm gonna say. And she gets some. I mean, she gets some crazy scenes, man. You've got Azrael, you know, who has. I mean, everyone literally gets a storyline in this. You know, everyone has a role to play, and the way they play with the team dynamics. I mean, even Clayface. You know, Clayface, they've managed to make him a likable character. I never gave two shites about Clayface as a character, but they've made us care about him and his role with the team. And I gotta be honest, it has been a fantastic run. The only thing I haven't cared for is Night of the Monstermen, which is kind of like a crossover between the Batman comic, if I'm not mistaken, the Batman solo comic, Nightwing, and Detective Comics. Yeah, so I mean, but other than that, man, I mean, it's been an awesome run. Ra's al Ghul makes an appearance. The League of Assassins makes an appearance, man. It's a great run, and definitely shout out to DC for this run. Yeah, it's been awesome. Absolutely, it's been a joy. But anyway, guys, let us know if you're interested in hearing us talk more about comics. Let us know if you're reading anything in DC Comics right now that you feel like should be on the list, or that you're just enjoying in general. And by all means, we form on our own team, and it's called the Spectacular Spoiler League. Hit the subscribe button. We need you guys in this family right here. We'll see you guys in the next one. We're getting out of here.
Bong bong.